Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. So lately I've been poking around in the church news archives. I realized that this is a rich source of information and gems, and there's just so much to go through. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time there, and I came across a few different times that some of our apostles have made contact with and associated with Jews. And this is of interest to me. I have this spreadsheet called Prophets Travel. You can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. It keeps evolving. At one time, I was ambitious enough to where I was going to try and track every time that a member of the First Presidency or a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles traveled outside the country. But in particular, I've been interested in whenever they go to Israel. So I have Israel in this blue color so you can easily see it. And then I started adding any time that they've gone to the sites in Missouri, like Independence, Missouri, Adam-on-Diamond. So this is all in timeline order. And then after looking in the church news archives today, I realized I think I'll at least add another thing to track, which will be any time that a prophet or apostle has met with the Jews. Because I am of the opinion, or at least I'm open to the idea that the two witnesses going to Israel, I think that very well could be just this whole line of prophets and apostles that have been reaching out to the Jews, especially in Israel. But it could also apply to just Jews throughout the world, the Jewish leadership in various countries. I realize that the scriptures talk about the two witnesses in Jerusalem, but I just wonder if that's just specifically within the city limits of Jerusalem. Could it include all of Israel? Could it include all of Judaism throughout the diaspora? So I'm very loose. I'll just wait to see what happens. But I want to show you what I found. Just really quick, column D. This is new. So I have a Star of David for any time that there was contact with Jews. So in this case right here on row 12, this was in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and there was contact with the Jews of Argentina. So before we continue with that, I just want to share a couple things that I think that we should realize. A lot of times people try and put together timelines. They try to privately interpret scripture, and they want everything very solidified in their heads. It may be because that gives you a sense of security. I don't know. Maybe you just think that you know the scriptures really well, but I would be cautious with that for the following reasons. So this is from Elder D. Todd Christofferson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. This is the church news website. It's their podcast that they do hosted by Sarah Jane Weaver. And this is recently from Elder Christofferson. One thing I would say is don't ever be discouraged. You don't see things unfolding that are unfolding. Pay attention to that phrase, you don't see. I say that because I think a lot of times when we read the scriptures, we think that the prophecies of the last days are supposed to play out in front of us like a movie, that we're supposed to be privy to everything and know when certain things are fulfilled. But Elder Christofferson says, you don't see things unfolding that are unfolding. You don't see what the Lord is putting in place. The Argentina North Mission was about half the country. I thought when I left, I have done something worthwhile and probably will never see this place again. But now I think of coming back these years later, having been at the dedication of the first chapel, now to be there for the dedication of the temple, to see that transition and the progress of the Lord's kingdom all day to day, invisible to us. So this is like now the third time that he's saying, you don't see, it's invisible. And then he continues, and we don't see what is happening, but looking back, see a tremendous miracle has occurred. And it just says to me, again, it is the Lord's work. He is making it happen. He is doing the work for the most part. We get to help around the edges. Okay, and then I wanted to share this from Elder Bruce R. McConkie. This is from his book called The Millennial Messiah, The Second Coming of the Son of Man, page 251. Jesus' next statements seem to be commentary and explanation relative to the events that will happen both before and after his coming. It is not always possible for us in our present state of spiritual enlightenment to put every event into an exact category or time frame. We are left to ponder and wonder about many things, perhaps to keep us alert and attentive to the commandments should the Lord come in our day. See, that's the thing. We're supposed to be ready. That's part of the reason why no man knows the day or the hour. And so to think that you can mark on your calendar, oh, okay, this started, so in exactly 1,260 days, we should expect to see this. And then another 3.5 years, this is going to happen. I don't think so, you guys. We are left to ponder and wonder about many things, perhaps to keep us alert and attentive to the commandments should the Lord come in our day. And some of the prophetic utterances apply to both pre- and post-millennial events. Some have an initial and partial fulfillment in our day, and shall have a second and grander completion in the days ahead. So, and we've seen this. A good example of that is the Independence Visitor Center in Independence, Missouri. We've gone into the David O. McKay diaries. That center was built to be one of the 24 temples of the 24 temple complex. So that's like a partial fulfillment. At some point in the future, we'll have all 24. But right now we have this one. It's being used as a visitor center. But at any time, it could be renovated and turned into the temple that it's supposed to be. So, and who's to say that that's not enough to fulfill the prophecy before the second coming that there would be a temple in New Jerusalem that Christ could come to? We'll just have to wait and see. So with that in mind, going back here, we have all these prophets and apostles going to the Holy Land. And on top of that, speaking to Jews throughout the world. Remember, one of the primary responsibilities of an apostle is to be a missionary. So this timeline, it goes back, really far. At the very bottom, this is just like my timeline on a separate spreadsheet for visions and visitations. At the very bottom, I have a tally by decade of how many times they visited. In this case, this is visits to Israel. So I have a total so far of 22 visits, starting in the 1840s when Elder Orson Hyde went to dedicate the land. And there were subsequent, dedications of the land for the return of the Jews. It wasn't just this one time in 1841. There were multiple other ones. And then things have just kind of picked up. And so far, the decade in first place is the 2010s with 7 visits. But I'm sure that there's so much more out there that I haven't found yet, but I'm going to try. Okay, so the apostles are going there. They are meeting with Jews. They're leading with leadership, both religious and political. And but right now, in this video, I want to share a couple times that they have met with Jews outside of Israel. And something really interesting that President Jeffrey R. Holland said back in 2018. So we'll go to that first. Okay, this is Church News. History, powerful doctrines, and ancient beliefs connect Jewish and Latter-day Saint faiths, Elder Holland says. This was published June 6, 2018. And there he is, embracing, this is Rabbi Abraham Skorka. Okay. Buenos Aires, Argentina. During his visit to the South America South area, Elder Jeffrey R. Holland of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles received key leaders from the Jewish community of Buenos Aires in a fruitful meeting to deepen the fraternal bonds that unite both communities. The meeting was attended by representatives of over 80% of the Jewish community in Argentina and marks a historic occasion as the first formal outreach to Jewish leaders in Argentina by the church. It's really interesting. I really think, you guys, that recently the church has become more and more interested in the Jews. I have other spreadsheets I could show you, but it would just make this video too long. But there's really good reason to believe that. But for this video, you can just see it in the number of visits that we have on this timeline so far. It really seems like things are kind of ramping up. Okay, quote, "I am deeply honored to be with you this morning," Elder Holland said as he opened the meeting. Now listen to this part. This is interesting, and I'm so glad I came across this article just for this. Quote, "I have been the church's principal contact with the Jewish community for just over 40 years. And it has been one of the sweetest associations in my life." Okay, so before this point, let me show you what I had on my quotes A through Z spreadsheet. The topic is Jeffrey R. Holland. So before today, this is what I had on here. Okay. I've always felt like President Holland was special, that he stood out from the others. Remember, he was the president of BYU at the time that the BYU Jerusalem Center was constructed. He was very involved in that. And he is one that as far as I know, let's see, I think it's this one right here. As far as I know, the only two apostles that have met with an Israeli prime minister has been President Holland and Elder Cook. This was back in 2016. If this turns out to be the final war, then essentially these two met with the prime minister, at least the prime minister at the beginning of the war, because who knows what'll happen in the days ahead. But to me, this is a stunning image. The political leadership of Israel, and then he's met with religious leaders throughout Judaism. Okay. So the fact that recently he had this brush with death, it seemed like he should have died, is the sense that I get, but that he has been preserved for some reason. I don't know. It may have to do with his relationship with the Jews. He may, if there are literally just two witnesses, maybe he's one of them. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I know that a lot of you have your theories about different things. I'm not going to go into all that right now. I just wouldn't be surprised. Okay, so, but this is new. Okay, so, oh yeah, sorry. So this is what I wanted to read. This is from Mormon Newsroom, I guess is what it was called at the time. November 3rd, 2016. Elder Holland, then president of Brigham Young University, was involved in a significant way and still has responsibility for relationships in the Middle East. So that's what I had before today. But it seems like it's more than just the Middle East. In this article, he's saying, let's read it again. "I have been the church's principal contact with the Jewish community for just over 40 years. So he doesn't specify just the Middle East or Israel. It seems like worldwide. Okay, continuing. Speaking of his recent visit to Jerusalem with President Russell M. Nelson, and that's another thing, President Nelson took him when they started his global ministry tour. They visited 7 countries, and they wanted to go to Jerusalem first, and he took Elder Holland with him. And there's a couple incredible pictures of them at the BYU Jerusalem Center with the Dome of the Rock in the background, the Temple Mount. Okay. So, speaking of his recent visit to Jerusalem with President Russell M. Nelson, Elder Holland explained that the church-owned BYU Jerusalem Center, established in 1988, overlooks the Mount of Olives in the Holy Land, a part of the world considered sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. As president of Brigham Young University at the time the center was established, Elder Holland was significantly involved as the church worked closely with government and community leaders to obtain permission to build the center. Skipping forward a little bit, quote, "We pray for the preservation of the Jewish people and for their peaceful association with all who dwell in what is truly the Holy Land," Elder Holland said. He explained the fundamental similarities between the LDS and Jewish communities. So, hold on, just pay attention to this. He's talking to the Jews. He's establishing a relationship. He's letting them know about us and kind of teaching them about the restored church. And just look. So, each of which have global membership close to 16 million. Quote, "We feel we have special compassion for the persecution your people have suffered, for we too have a history of religious persecution," Elder Holland said. He shared how early members of the church had been driven from 6 states and at one time had an extermination order issued against members of the young church. Quote, "There is much more than a history of stress and a history of misunderstanding that connect our communities," Elder Holland continued. "There are ties infinitely more important that bring us here today. History, powerful doctrines, and ancient beliefs connect our faith with you." End quote. Teaching of ancient scriptures, Elder Holland said, "You know better than I the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and their posterity, which did not, it turned out, preclude the scattering and dispersion of that posterity. But equally prophesied was that ancient Israel would be gathered." End quote. Now, this is similar to what he said back in 2016. So after meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, other people that were in that picture, they went to the BYU Jerusalem Center. I think there's a picture of it here. Yeah. They went to the BYU Jerusalem Center. He spoke, and there's a transcript of what he said. And we've already read this, but what we're reading right now seems like it's the same as what he said to them at the BYU Jerusalem Center. So I'll put a link for this in the description box below, but it's essentially like a little missionary lesson that he gave, but tailored to Jews. Maybe not like missionary, like trying to get them to convert, but it was teaching them about the church and how we view our relationship with them. Because we don't proselyte in the Holy Land, but he's teaching them about the church. Okay, so back to this. Okay, introducing the Book of Mormon, he held up a copy bound together with the Old Testament to symbolize the unity of both books in declaring the promises made to Israel. He then shared that the Book of Mormon is the stick of Joseph through Ephraim, which has now been linked with the stick of Judah to remind all people of the great covenants made between God and Israel. He related how the early members of the church, under the direction of the young prophet Joseph Smith, built the first Latter-day Saint temple in the tradition, but not with the luxury of Solomon's temple. And he said that at the BYU Jerusalem Center as well. So again, telling Jews that, the third temple, the true third temple, the Kirtland temple, has been built. That's a pretty stunning thing to tell them. Following the dedication of that temple, Joseph Smith experienced divine visitations in that holy place, in which a series of Old Testament prophets appeared and initiated the fulfillment of many of the prophecies or promises made to ancient Israel. One visitor was the prophet Elijah, in fulfillment of the ancient promise recorded in Malachi. So yeah, he hit on all the same points. It's like this is the outline that he used both in Jerusalem and in Argentina. Okay, quote, "This return of Elijah is crucial to the Latter-day Saint theology, giving meaning to the 159 temples we have built around the world, including 2 in Argentina, with many more to come worldwide," Elder Holland said. "The temple is the heart of our theology and our worship. Because of Elijah's return, we believe it is where the hearts of the fathers are turned to the children, and the hearts of the children are turned to their fathers," end quote. Attendees of the meeting expressed joy in meeting with Elder Holland, and many have requested the opportunity to work with the church in planning future seminars and service projects in cooperation with the Jewish communities in Argentina. So it seems like this meeting was a success. So it's just really interesting. So here's 2 times that he personally has told the Jews about our church, what we believe, and how we believe we relate to them. But a more complete copy would be right here, this transcript. Okay, and then let's see, I think there were some pictures. So there's him and the rabbi in Argentina, and then him meeting with other Jews. There's his wife. There's his wife, Pat. Let me go back to that. So she's meeting with them. So it's just really interesting. Okay, and then I have this as well. This is from Deseret News. How Elder Quentin L. Cook, Robert Abrams model interfaith relationships for Jews and Latter-day Saints. Let me zoom in. Elder Quentin L. Cook of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Quorum of the 12 Apostles, Center, laughs with Rabbi Joseph Potosnik, left, so him, and former New York Attorney General Robert Abrams in Brooklyn on Friday, March 4th, 2022. So meeting with another rabbi and also another, like a prominent Jew here in the United States. Last week, I asked former New York Attorney General Robert Abrams, a faithful Jewish man from the Bronx, what causes him to be so interested in behalf of Latter-day Saints today. Quote, well, first of all, I think there is much that the Jewish community has in common with the LDS community. He said a few hours before he was presented with the J. Reuben Clark Law Society's Thomas L. Kane Award by senior Latter-day Saint leaders. Later on, he says, there are many, many, many things that we can do for each other, together with each other, helping each other, and helping the cause of humanity, Abrams said. One of those he noted is sharing one another's traditions. He talked about 2 examples. One was about Abrams' son-in-law, who is a modern Orthodox rabbi in Jerusalem. Since Abrams and elders Jeffrey R. Holland and Quentin L. Cook of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles headed up a delegation to visit Israel, the rabbi has invited students from BYU's Jerusalem Center to his congregation's Friday night services. The other was about Elder Cook. Quote, my wife and I have shared a Sabbath dinner with Elder Cook and his wife, Mary, and Elder Von Keach and his wife, and John Taylor, the former head of interfaith activities for the church, and his wife, Jen, Abrams said. Okay, so BYU students being invited to Friday night services. Here you have Abrams having a Sabbath dinner with an apostle and his wife and other personnel with the church. So just more. It's like more building bridges and connecting and sharing beliefs. And then the last one, I did a video about this, but here you have Elder Andersen. Again, this time after Elder Holland, fast forward to 2024, Elder Andersen went to Argentina. I can only assume that this is probably the same group, but here's this picture of Elder Andersen blowing a shofar, which I think was significant, by the way, but I'm not going to go over that in this video. So I have my video when this first came out where I talk about this, and then the significance of shofars and blowing horns and trumpets and how that relates to the last days and the times that we see trumpets in the scriptures. Specifically, anytime that you see a set of 7 trumpets. The first time you see that was with Jericho, and it was shofars, a ram's horn. But then the other times is in the book of Revelation. That's the second set. And then in Doctrine and Covenants, section 88, there are 2 more sets of 7 trumpets. So I would encourage you to watch this video if you haven't. It's really good. Anyway, let me go ahead and read this really quick, just so we can get a sense of what our apostles are doing with these different Jewish leaders and people. As disciples of Jesus Christ, we embrace good men and women everywhere. One of the wonderful blessings of traveling across the nations and cultures of the world is seeing that most people are good and thoughtful. Most love their families and want to help others. Many love God, pray to Him, and desire to please Him by how they live their lives. This was my experience recently in Argentina, where I was invited by Rabbi Ariel Stoffenmacher to address his very respected seminary, Rabbinico Latinoamericano. It was a night of expressions of love and understanding. Rabbi Stoffenmacher was kind enough to share with me a gift, an actual shofar made from a ram's horn, used in Jewish religious purposes, especially during Rosh Hashanah, which is the Feast of Trumpets. We had a wonderful time together. The light of Christ illuminates all the world, and we rejoice with all those who try so hard to choose good over evil. Let us continue to build relationships and foster understanding with others we love and respect. All right, so heading back to the spreadsheet. So back on May 30th, 2018, I have this new entry for Elder Holland in Argentina. And then I have this one. It was March 4th, 2022, Brooklyn, New York, USA, where Elder Quentin L. Cook met with Rabbi Joseph Potosnik, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, and Newark Attorney General Robert Abrams. And then back to Argentina, May of 2024, but this time Elder Andersen. So, yeah, I went ahead and I left this South Africa trip by Elder Rasband, and then this one also by Elder Rasband, and then San Francisco by Elder Gong. Those were not to meet with Jews, but I'm going to leave them on there for right now because I may just go ahead and try and, I don't know, capture more of these visits to other countries. It's kind of hard because they're traveling all the time from what I can tell. It's just, there's always an apostle going somewhere doing something across the world. It's really kind of astounding. But anyway, let's just pay attention to this column, column D for Jewish visits. And there have been a lot. There's been a lot. So I think there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't see. We don't see everything. And I believe that this is fulfilling prophecy. It may not be our missionaries, like our elders and sisters, with the name tags, but the Lord can do His own work, and the apostles are missionaries. That's what they're called to do. And they are reaching the Jewish leadership across the world. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.